rhetoric about illegal aliens and it being racist to kick illegal aliens out of your fucking country. It's like, okay, then go to China. You know? Go somewhere else. The fuck out. Oh, okay. With the recent announcement about the Epstein files and list, what would a hypothetical scenario like... I'm not exactly sure how the British elections are scheduled. It looks pretty irregular. Okay, well I thought there was something like in the UK, like most elections were held every 6 years, whereas like in the West everything's held like North America, like Canada and the US is every 4 years. But no actual idea. Like, if you had nothing to do with Epstein, then you will resign as a government official. All government that doesn't resign goes to jail. How would this affect the government if every single person in power was instantly removed? How long would it take for the power vacuum to be filled? And how do you think it would be done? Boom. Throw it right out there. How fucked up can we get? And we're talking on a worldwide basis. Not just America. Literally every country in the entire world. Just to see what would happen. Because I like going absolutely to the fucking extreme and saying... Because most of the time I go to the absolute extreme and it's not far enough. It's like, nah, that wouldn't destabilize anything. It's like, well, then why don't we do it? Because everyone says it'll destabilize it. Well, why won't it destabilize it? Oh, because people will just fill in the gaps. Like, everyone will just instantly get promoted one step up. And then you just have to fill the bottom 2%. But, hey, if we can get enough people together and we can hold enough people accountable, it doesn't matter. No one has to actually know. We just have to make sure that everyone who is currently in power and has any piece of power is eliminated. And that's literally the only way to do it. You just say, everyone resign. That easy. That gives us time to fill your roles. Because it's only a resignation, and we already know it takes like a year and a half to retire. So it should take even longer to resign from the government. So that should give us plenty of time to fill in those holes. Effects on the government. Sudden removal of all government officials would be profound and immediate consequences. Government paralysis. With no one in power, the federal government would grind to a halt. There would be no leadership to enforce laws, manage national defense, oversee economic policy, or maintain essential services like social security, Medicare, or infrastructure. Agencies such as the FBI, military, and treasury would lack direction, leading to operational chaos. Constitutional crisis. The U.S. Constitution outlines succession for specific roles. The president and vice president are removed, the Speaker of the House takes over, but it doesn't address the simultaneous removal of all officials, executive, legislative, and judicial. Without a functioning Congress, President, or Supreme Court, there would be no legal mechanism to appoint replacements or pass emergency laws, creating an unprecedented crisis. Economic fallout. The stock market would likely crash due to uncertainty, disrupting global financial stability. Businesses and citizens rely on government services or payments would face immediate hardship, potentially triggering widespread economic panic. Social unrest. Public confusion and fear could lead to civil unrest, protests, or even looting, especially if essential services collapse. Trust in government institutions already strained by the Epstein scandal would erode further. Allies might struggle to coordinate with a leaderless U.S., while adversaries could exploit the situation diplomatically, economically, or militarily. The country's global influence would diminish rapidly. Government would cease to function, plunging the nation into chaos. How long would it take to fill the power vacuum? Timeline for the recovery depends on the scale of the collapse and the mechanisms available to rebuild. Here's a breakdown. Short term, weeks to months. Immediate priority would be maintaining basic order and services, food supply, utilities, public safety. Without federal leadership, this would fall to state and local governments, but their effects would be uncoordinated and limited. The military might step in to prevent total collapse, though this would raise legal and ethical concerns. Medium term, months to 1 to 2 years. Organizing new elections or appointing temporary officials would be essential but slow. The absence of a federal authority to oversee the process would complicate logistics, requiring ad hoc solutions. All right. Restoring basic governance might take 6 to 18 months, assuming elections and appointments could be arranged. Long-term, years to decades. Fully rebuilding a stable government, including trust in institutions, legislative capacity, and international relationships, could take 5 to 10 years or more. Historical examples like post-revolutionary governments suggest recovery from total collapse in a lengthy process. In the best-case scenario, partial functionality might return within a year, but complete recovery would likely span years due. How would the power vacuum be filled? Filling the vacuum would require extraordinary measures, as normal succession processes would be unavailable. Here's how it might unfold. State governments take charge. With the federal government gone, state governors and legislators could assume temporary control. Well, it's actually, local and state government would also be resigned or removed. There would be no government, and this doesn't just apply to the U.S. In this hypothetical, it applies to every country in the world. Without government oversight, what do you think companies would do to fill the vacuum? Like, it just didn't take the scope of it enough. We're talking the entire world here. As far a reach as we can get. Just to see what it looks like. What kind of world can we create with this? Give it enough time, it'll happen. It slowly is happening. Give it 100 years. In this hypothetical scenario, every government official worldwide, from local to national levels in every country, has been removed, leaving no government oversight anywhere. This creates a global power vacuum with no laws, no enforcement, no public services, and no regulatory bodies. The question is, what would companies do to fill this void? Below, I'll explore the likely responses of companies, the implications of their actions, and how this might unfold over time. Immediate aftermath. Chaos and opportunity. Sudden disappearance of all governments will plunge the world into chaos. Lawfulness without police, courts, or military, looting, violence, and resource hoarding would erupt as people scramble for safety and survival. Service collapse. Public infrastructure, water, electricity, healthcare, and transportation would fail without government coordination or maintenance. Economic distribution. Financial systems would crash as state-backed currencies lose value, and global trade would stall due to the absence of legal frameworks or contracts or property rights. With this turmoil, companies, particularly large multinational corporations, MNCs, would see both risks and opportunities. With their resources, global networks, and organizational structures, they could attempt to impose order, but their actions would prioritize profit and self-interest over public welfare. How companies would fill the vacuum. In the absence of government, companies would likely take on roles traditionally held by the state, reshaping society in their image. Here's how this might play out. Corporate governance and feudalism. Multinational corporations take charge. Companies like Amazon, Google, or ExxonMobil, with vast wealth and reach, could establish control over regions where they operate. They might deploy private security forces to protect their facilities, employees, and supply chains, effectively becoming local rulers. Corporate territories. These firms could create corporate zones, providing essentials like food, water, electricity in exchange for loyalty, labor, or resources. This could evolve into a form of corporate feudalism where companies act as modern lords and citizens depend on them for survival. Private legal systems. Without courts, companies might set up their own arbitration systems to enforce contracts and resolve disputes, though these would likely favor the corporation's interests. Technology, so it'd basically be the same as the government. Technology as a power base, but we would know that it was a bought and owned government. We wouldn't just have to guess, it would be a fact. Technology as a power base. Digital platforms set up. Tech giants like Meta or Tencent would become central hubs for communication and coordination. They might impose their own rules on digital communities, replacing laws with platform policies, and use user data as a tool for influence or control. New economies. With national currencies collapsing, companies could promote or create digital currencies like cryptocurrencies or corporate-backed tokens to facilitate trade within their ecosystems. This might lead to a fragmented global economy with competing monetary systems. Monopolization and megacorporations. Consolidation of power. Without antitrust laws, companies could merge or collude to form massive conglomerates, dominating entire industries or regions. A single entity might control global food supply or energy distribution, for example. Exploitation unleashed. Free from regulations, companies could prioritize profits over social or environmental concerns, leading to labor exploitation, severe inequality, and ecological harm. Security and private militias. Corporate armies. To safeguard their assets, companies might form private security forces or militias. These could grow into corporate armies, sparking conflicts with rival firms over territory or resources. Mercenary boom. Security firms could thrive, offering protection to the highest bidder and offer militarizing the corporate landscape. Local and small-scale responses. Community efforts. Smaller businesses or local communities might form cooperatives to provide essentials like food or healthcare. However, these grassroots initiatives would lack the resources to compete with larger corporations and could be absorbed or crushed. Barter systems. Informal economies or barter networks might emerge locally, but they'd struggle to scale or provide long-term stability. Global implications. The collapse of all governments would reshape the world dramatically. Fragmentation. Internal trade and cooperation would vanish, replaced by a patchwork of corporate territories and local power structures. Each region might operate under different rules depending on who holds sway. Resource conflicts. Competition for scarce resources, water, oil, minerals, could lead to wars between corporate entities or local groups. Inequality surge. Areas with advanced technology or corporate presence might stabilize under company rule, while less developed regions could descend into poverty or anarchy. Timeline of corporate influence. The process would unfold in stages: immediate chaos, days to week. Panic and violence dominate as companies secure their own operations, facilities, warehouses, and staff. Stabilization months. Larger firms begin asserting control locally, offering services in exchange for allegiance. Private security becomes widespread. Consolidation, 1 to 2 years. Mega corporations form through mergers or alliances, dominating key sectors. Digital platforms and currencies gain traction and new power centers. New order, 5+ years. A fragmented world emerges with corporate fiefdoms, digital domains, and struggling local enclaves coexisting. Conflicts between corporate powers or with resistance groups could persist. Conclusion. In a world without government oversight, companies, especially multinational corporations, would likely become the dominant players, filling the power vacuum with a focus on profit and control. The result could be a dystopian landscape of corporate feudalism where megacorporations rule over territories, digital platforms dictate social norms, and local communities fight to retain autonomy. While some innovation might emerge without bureaucratic constraints, it would come at the expense of equity, environmental health, and global stability. The scenario highlights the critical role governments play in balancing corporate power and safeguarding the public good. With all of this in mind, do you think the people of the world would still want the Epstein list if it caused this? Could this be the end of the world? Who the fuck knows? It is what it is, right? This is why I love AI, because it's like, no one's really gonna have a conversation with you about this, right? At least from my perspective, no one ever does, because I think way too far. They're like, whoa, dude, and I'm like, well, just, it's hypothetical, like, what, let's just keep rolling the snowball, see what happens, where does it take us, like, they're like, I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm like, fine, man, if you just don't want to, if you don't want to be a critical thinker and you don't want to think for yourself, that's completely fine. Your question, whether people would still want the Epstein list if it caused a global government collapse, is a tough one, and it depends on how people weigh the value of truth against the need for stability. Let's break it down and explore what might drive their decision. What happens if the Epstein list triggers a collapse? If releasing the Epstein list led to every government official worldwide being removed, the immediate fallout would be massive. Chaos everywhere. No laws, no police, no hospitals running smoothly. Basic services would grind to a halt. Imagine cities descending into panic as people scramble for food, safety, and order. Corporate power grab. Big companies might step in to fill the void, turning the world into a patchwork of corporate-run zones. Think of the little... redo the analysis with the removal of all company leadership as well, not just government. I should make that very clear that, oh, you think it's just the government doing this? Nah, that's not how this shit works. Anyone with power, like literally celebrities, fucking corporates, fucking royalty, government, military, like rich civilian sector, like insanity. And that's the scope we're all talking. Cute Buffin, what's up? How's it going, bro? Welcome. How are you? We're discussing what would happen if the Epstein list came out. And basically every leader in every position of power, for everything from government to corporate to like civilians, celebrities, just immediately is just like gone from power. What would the world look like, and would the people want that to happen? Here's a complete analysis of what would happen if all government officials and company leadership were suddenly removed from power, plunging the world into a scenario where both political and corporate authorities vanish overnight. If you have a look at my stream, you'll see how brain dead I am right now. Oh, are you up to like 80? I saw you were at like 40. $76. Damn. You're going for 6.5 fucking hours, bro. You're 3/4 of the way there. It took you 3 hours to get to 76. You've still got another hour to go, bro. You can do it. Get to 100. I believe in you, man. Let's do it. Let's go. Fuck yeah. It's all about finishing the grind, man. It's all about finishing the grind. Crashed at 40 minutes and I had to restart. Ooh, fuck, that sucks, bro. I was so surprised that we didn't get any crashes during the 24-hour stream. I was like, fuck yes. I was so worried that it was just gonna freak out and crash when I like woke up and the stream was just gonna be fucked. But everything worked out, everything went on. It was all good. So I wanted it 24 hours. It's not 24 hours if it's 8 hours and 16 hours. It has to be 24 fucking hours. It's the only way to get it to go. But yeah, man, keep fucking pushing. Keep fucking going. I believe in you, man. Yeah, I didn't rewatch it. Good. Because, yeah. You'll notice something is missing. But that's okay. You can blame Smokey for pissing me off. With his gay for an hour and a half. If that hadn't if I just turned off the TV to begin with and just set an alarm, it would have been fine. But no, I'd be like, I want them to know that I can hear the TTS. Is there a timestamp for the? No, it never happened, Muffin. It never happened. I slept in, thanks to Smokey. And then I never got the chance because I basically had it planned so that no one would be home. But that didn't happen. Yeah, fuck me. Yeah. So it was kind of a loss. But I still want to do the house tour. It's just not going to be... I'm probably just going to do a video of the house tour whenever I get a chance. Because it's going to have to be, like, during the middle of the day. So, maybe I'll do that next week. Who knows? We'll see. I haven't edited anything. It's the first day where I didn't make, like, a highlight reel in, like, 6 months. Like, I didn't do anything. I slept for, like, 16 hours. I was like, fuck this. And I literally, like, woke up at 12, I ate, I watched Asmon for, like, 4.5 hours, and I passed back out until the stream came on. I was like, or I guess it was, like, actually 10 o'clock. I did, like, pre-stream stuff, and then I watched Rick and Morty. That's what I did. I watched the new Rick and Morty episode before the stream. That was fucking great. I'm gonna get back to losing my sanity. Alright, sounds good, Muffin. Enjoy. Thanks for coming in for the tiny little break, bro. Always good to see ya, bro. Immediate collapse. The simultaneous removal of all government officials and company leadership would trigger a catastrophic breakdown in society. Government functions cease. Governments enforce laws, maintain public order, and provide essential services like healthcare, sanitation, and infrastructure. Without officials, police forces dissolve, hospitals grind to a halt, and utilities like water and electricity falter as no one coordinates this operation. Corporate paralysis. Company leaders, CEOs, executives, and boards drive production, innovation, and employment. Their absence leaves businesses directionless. Factories stop producing, supply chains disintegrate, and millions lose their livelihood as payrolls freeze and decisions stall. Panic would erupt almost immediately. People would rush to secure food, medicine, and safety, overwhelming whatever systems remain functional. The lack of authority would amplify chaos as no one could organize a response. Power vacuum and fragmentation. With no leaders in place, a massive power vacuum would emerge across all levels of society. Local power grabs. Without government, communities might turn to local groups, militias, gangs, or even rogue military units for protection and order. These factions would likely compete, leading to turf wars and violence. Corporate disarray. In companies, mid-level managers and employees might attempt to take charge, but without a clear hierarchy or resources, their efforts would be disorganized. Major corporations, especially in tech, manufacturing, and finance, would struggle to function, let alone innovate. Emerging leaders. Over time, new figures would rise, charismatic individuals, opportunists, or those with access to resources, weapons, or stockpiles. However, their authority would be contested, prolonging instability. The absence of centralized control would fragment society into smaller, competing units, each prioritizing survival over cooperation. Economic freefall. The global economy would collapse under the weight of this dual leadership loss. Trade halts. International trade relies on government agreements and corporate logistics. Without either, ports would clog, shipments would stop, and supply chains would break down entirely. Shortages spread. Essentials like food, fuel, and medicine would vanish from shelves, especially in regions dependent on imports. Urban areas unable to sustain themselves to face starvation and disease. Current fails. With no government to back money and no companies to sustain its flow, bartering might replace currency. Trust in financial systems would evaporate, deepening economic despair. The result: widespread poverty, famine, and a regression to localized subsistence-based economies. Social breakdown and adaptation. Society would fracture as people grapple with the fallout. Survival mode. Communities might band together for mutual support, pooling resources and skills. However, fear and scarcity would also breed conflict, making cooperation fragile. Insularity rises. Trust in institutions already shattered would give way to suspicion of outsiders. Borders, both literal and social, would harden as groups prioritize their own. Cultural shift. Values might shift towards self-reliance and immediate survival, sidelining long-term goals like education or technological advancement. While some communities could adapt, many would succumb to violence, starvation, or disease in the absence of coordinated aid. Long road to recovery. Rebuilding would be a slow, painful process. Decentralized governance, new systems might emerge from the ground up. Local councils, trade networks, or warlord-led territory. Centralized authority would take years, if not decades, to reestablish. Innovation stalls. Without government funding or corporate R&D, technological progress would slow dramatically. Efforts would focus on immediate needs, food production rather than breakthroughs. Global disconnection. International collaboration would fade, leaving nations and regions isolated. The world would become a patchwork of struggling societies. Recovery would happen, but it'd be uneven and costly. The scars, lost lives, broken economies, and eroded trust would linger for generations. Conclusion. The removal of all government officials and company leaders wouldn't just reset society, it would tear it apart. The immediate chaos would give way to a brutal struggle for power and resources, crashing the global economy and fracturing social bonds. While humanity would eventually reorganize, the process would be a protracted mess, marked by hardship and loss on an unimaginable scale. This isn't a clean state. It's a demolition. So with this all in mind, do you think the people of the world would still want to know who was on the Epstein list? Given the extreme scenario where releasing the Epstein list would lead to the immediate removal of all government officials and company leadership worldwide, causing a total societal collapse, it's unlikely that most people would still want the list released. Here's why. Most people would not want the list released. Survival trumps truth. If the list's release triggers global chaos, crashing economies, power vacuums, and widespread violence, people would lose access to basic necessities like food, water, and safety. In such a dire situation, the immediate need to survive would outweigh the abstract desire to know who was involved with Epstein. Most wouldn't risk their lives and families for transparency. Fear of anarchy. Humans generally prefer stability, even if imperfect, over complete disorder. A world without governance or economic systems would be terrifying. No laws, no services, no safety nets. History shows that during crises, people often rally around familiar structure rather than embrace total upheaval. No practical outcome. If society collapses, the list becomes meaningless. With no courts to prosecute, no media to report, and no functioning institutions to hold anyone accountable, knowing the names wouldn't lead to justice. The revelation would be a hollow victory in a world too broken to act on it. Everyday priorities. Most people aren't revolutionaries. They want to live their lives, raise their kids, and maintain some normalcy. The prospect of losing everything would make the cost of releasing the list feel unbearable, even if they're outraged by the corruption it might expose. Why some might still want the list. Justice at any cost. A smaller group might insist that exposing corruption is worth any price. They could see the collapse as a necessary purge of a rotten system, believing that chaos could pave the way for something better. Total distrust. Those who've already lost faith in governments and institutions might feel they have nothing left to lose. For them, the truth could be a final stand against the powerful regardless of the consequences. Moral symbolism. Even without practical results, some might view the release as a symbolic win, a way to unmask the guilty before everything falls apart. While a vocal minority might still demand to know who is on the Epstein list, the majority of people would likely say no if they understood it would trigger a global societal collapse. The desire for truth and accountability is strong, but when faced with the loss of everything, safety, stability, and survival, most would choose to preserve what they have over chasing a reckoning that offers no real resolution in the chaos that follows. Curiosity about the list might linger, but not at the expense of the world they live in. Here's something I haven't heard anyone talk about. What do you think about this? Do you think after Epstein was exposed, if everything is true, so let's go hypothetical and say the allegations are true about Epstein. What are the chances in a percent that the people that were partaking of Epstein's services stopped doing that completely, and that Epstein was the only person doing this for people? Who could possibly be either the replacement for Epstein's services or a competitor? I can't do the think, but whatever. We can still do deep search. I like this one. Because, yeah, I'm like, you think they just stopped? I don't think they just stopped. They're like, well, the guy that did it is dead, he got caught, so I guess we can't ever do this again. Sorry, guys, that's not how it works. You find someone else. When you do shit like that, when you're that powerful, you find something else. You find someone else. You're like, shit, that one got bust, okay, well, let's play along with that one for a while, and that'll be like 15 years of not having to worry about it. I was actually wondering if it was even going to do this. Or it was going to be like, no, I can't because it's too, like, the subject matter. Seems likely that not all individuals involved in Epstein's activities stopped completely, given the nature of sex trafficking and its profitability. Damn. Research suggests Epstein was not the only person providing such services, as sex trafficking is a widespread global issue with many networks. The evidence leads towards other criminal organizations or individuals continuing similar activities, potentially filling the void left by Epstein, though specific replacements are not publicly identified. Likelihood of stopping. Given the allegations are true, it's unlikely that everyone involved in Epstein's activities stopped completely. Sex trafficking is driven by profit and power, and historical patterns show such networks often persist under new leadership. Some may have continued discreetly, especially with increased scrutiny after Epstein's exposure. Was Epstein unique? Epstein was part of a larger ecosystem, not a lone operator. His network included associates like Ghislaine... I think that's how you say her name? Ghislaine Maxwell, and sex trafficking involves many other individuals and groups globally, suggesting he was not the only one providing such services. Potential replacement or competitors. While specific individuals are publicly identified as replacing Epstein, the global nature of sex trafficking means other networks or individuals likely continued similar operations. These could include organized crime groups or local operators, but exact figures remain speculative due to the underground nature of the crime. This analysis explores the hypothetical scenario where all allegations about Jeffrey Epstein are true, focusing on the likelihood that those involved in his activities stopped completely, whether Epstein was the only person providing such services and who might have replaced or competed with him. The decision is grounded in the nature of sex trafficking, historical patterns, and available information about Epstein's network, acknowledging the complexity and sensitivity of the topic. Background on Epstein's activities. Jeffrey Epstein was involved in a sophisticated sex trafficking operation that exploited minors and young women, characterized by high-profile nature and longevity. Spanning decades, his activities were not isolated. They involved a network of associates, including recruiters like Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted in 2021 for her role in facilitating his crimes. Epstein's operation was notable for its connections to wealthy and powerful individuals, but it was part of a broader ecosystem of exploitation. Legal actions such as lawsuits against his estate and U.S. government's 2022 suit against J.P. Morgan Chase Bank for allegedly facilitating his trafficking network highlight the scale and impact of his activities. Likelihood that those involved stopped completely. The chances that all individuals involved in Epstein's activities stopped completely are low, given the nature of the crime and its profitability. Sex trafficking is a highly profitable and deeply enriched criminal enterprise, often driven by financial gain, power, or personal gratification. Historical precedent shows that when a central figure in a trafficking ring is removed, through arrest or death, the network often continues under new leadership or splinters into smaller operations. For example, after the arrest of other high-profile traffickers, their networks have been known to persist, adapting to law enforcement pressure. Epstein's associates, such as Maxwell, were prosecuted, but not all were arrested or faced legal consequences. The high-profile nature of Epstein's case and subsequent legal actions might have deterred some from continuing, at least in the short term, due to increased scrutiny. However, the underlying motivations, profit and demand, suggest that some individuals likely continue their activities discreetly, possibly within new networks or under different leadership. This is supported by the persistence of sex trafficking as a global issue, where demand often outpaces law enforcement efforts. Was Epstein the only person providing such services? Epstein was not the only person providing such services. Sex trafficking is a widespread global issue, with countless individuals and organizations involved in similar activities. His operation was notable for its connections to wealth and power, but it was not unique. The scope of sex trafficking includes organized crime syndicates, gangs, and individual operators, operating independently of one another. Epstein's ability to recruit victims and maintain his activities for so long suggests he was part of a broader network of enablers, including recruiters, facilitators, and clients, as evidenced by court documents named over 170 associates, and the involvement of figures like Maxwell. The broader context of sex trafficking, with numerous documented cases worldwide, indicates that many other individuals and groups were engaged in similar activities during and after Epstein's operation. For instance, legal actions post-Epstein's death, such as the U.S. Virgin Islands suing his estate in January 2020 for trafficking activities up to 2018, suggest a network that extended beyond him. This reinforces the conclusion that Epstein was part of a larger ecosystem, not a singular provider. Potential replacements or competitors. While there is no public evidence or a specific individual or group explicitly taking over Epstein's exact operation, the global nature of sex trafficking ensures that others have likely continued or expanded similar activities. The market for sex trafficking is driven by supply and demand, and when one supplier is removed, the others step in to fill the void. Potential replacements or competitors could include existing networks, organized crime groups involved in human trafficking, which operate globally and have the resources to adapt to changes in leadership or law enforcement pressure. Local operators, individuals or smaller groups who exploit vulnerable populations, potentially filling the gap left by Epstein in specific regions. High-profile individuals. Given Epstein's connection to wealth and power, it's possible that other high-profile individuals or networks with similar access could continue similar activities, though this remains speculative due to the underground nature of the crime. The arrest and conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell in 2021 disrupted part of Epstein's network, but it did not eliminate sex trafficking. Other associates mentioned in court documents, such as those named in January 2024 unsealed records, may have continued their activities, though no direct evidence of replacements is publicly available. The persistence of sex trafficking as a global issue with ongoing arrests and investigations related to other trafficking rings post-Epstein suggests others may likely filled similar roles, though exact figures remain unidentified due to the clandestine nature of the crime. Detailed analysis of supporting information. The analysis is based upon information from various sources, including Wikipedia. Yeah, sure. Okay, we got the gist of it. In summary, it's likely that not all individuals involved in Epstein's activity stopped completely, given the persistent nature of sex trafficking and its profitability. Research suggests Epstein was not the only provider, as the crime involves many networks globally. The evidence leans towards other criminal organizations or individuals continuing similar activities, potentially filling the void left by Epstein, though specific replacements remain unidentified due to the underground nature of the crime. Again, hypothetically, what would happen if another person was exposed for the same thing as Epstein and all of the same people were involved? But this happened 20 years from now, and the amount of power those people have has now waned. Do you think there would be justice because it wouldn't affect the system as much? Or would they get away with it because the rich and powerful never go to jail? Who knows? See what he thinks. Did it just say it was confused? Hold on. Where did it say that? No, critics, including House Democrats, think DOJ might be hiding info. Conclusion might precedent future cases. Seems new crimes and evidence might emerge in 20 years, and considering how this could lead to accountability despite current findings. I swear it said it was confused. Must have read it wrong. Must have been considering. Yeah, that's what I read. I was like, why would it say it was confused? It's so weird. Nope, that's just me. Research suggests there's a 60-70% chance justice will be served, as waning power could make prosecution easier, but wealth might still shield some. It seems likely that justice will be more achievable due to reduced influence, but outcomes depend on evidence and legal system advancements. The evidence leans towards potential accountability, though controversy persists about whether the rich and powerful ever face consequences. Direct answer. Overview. In this hypothetical scenario where another person is exposed for Epstein-like crimes 20 years from now, 2045, and the same individuals are involved but their power has waned, justice is more likely to be served. Their reduced influence could make prosecution easier, especially with potential advancements in legal systems and societal attitudes. However, wealth might still pose challenges, and outcomes depend on evidence and the justice system's effectiveness. Then why does it, if it depends on evidence, then why does wealth have anything to do with it? Likelihood of justice. Research suggests there's a 60-70% chance justice will be served. Their power diminished, these individuals would have less ability to obstruct legal processes, and societal pressure might push for accountability, especially for crimes involving minors. Advances in technology like digital forensics could help gather evidence, and stronger laws might make prosecution more feasible. However, if they remain wealthy, they could still mount strong defenses or delay proceedings, which might reduce the likelihood slightly. Wombat! Yo, how's it going, bro? We are in a very, very deep dive here. Oh, are we talking about Mr. E? Oh, we're talking about Mr. E. Yes, we are. This is like the 8th question I've asked Grok on this, and we're just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into this. Challenges and controversy. Despite this, the controversy around whether the rich and powerful ever face consequences persists. Wealth can still provide resources for top-tier... Oh, and this all started, Wombat, because ask yourself this. This was the original question. After Epstein was exposed, do you think the people, and this is all hypothetical, I'm saying this is just the accusations that have been thrown out, that Trump, Clinton, Prince Andrew, and people like that just randomly stopped those acts, and that there's no one else that facilitates the same thing that Epstein did? Because I'm like, fuck it, Epstein's dead, let's just get the next guy that got in charge. Right? So there is an essence of why are we still talking about Epstein? We should find the next guy that came into power and get him. And then when he dies in jail and commits suicide, we get the next guy. And then we get the next guy. And then we get the next guy. And then eventually we're going to get to a point where everyone's going to be like, why do you guys keep letting them kill themselves? I wonder. I fucking wonder. So, you know, I think this smokescreen is more of a let's pretend that we're never gonna do it again and that there's no one else. I'm like, they should be looking for who replaced him and whether these people are still doing those things. Because when you have a reputation and you've been doing that shit for 20 years, you don't just fucking stop. You know? So, that's my question. Who's the new guy? I mean, there will always be another guy, but we shouldn't absolve the hypothetical culprits from Epstein's circle just because there are other fish to fry. I think it's a point where they shot themselves in the foot, and if they hadn't built it up so much, I don't think it would be such an issue. But the fact that they built it up so much and then turned it around and now everyone seems to be resigning, is like, maybe we're not going to get 4 years of fucking Trump. Maybe he's just going to resign himself too, right? Like, this could be some fucked up shit in the next year and a half. But I just love the idea that I don't think anyone's thinking, oh, they're still doing this. I think they're like, we got the guy, who cares? We stopped the guy, you know? It's like, well, yeah. And everyone knows there's, like, you know, different levels of it, right? But it's like, when you're literally doing this to presidents, to, the most powerful people in the fucking world, like, yeah, there's a bit of an issue there, right? And then for them to just, like, why can't they just say, hey man, if we release the list, everything's fucked, so we're just not going to release the list. Instead, they're like, well, there is no list! Oh yeah, there's nothing! There's actually nothing. Like, what a fucking retarded thing to do. There's so many other ways to say, yeah, well, it's just, we can't release it. Like, the entire first part of this was what would happen if the list was released and every single government and company official at, like, the top 10% was basically convicted and immediately erased. Okay, so, like, suppose there is concrete evidence that Trump was directly involved, did the no-no to kids. Would anything even change? I'm a bit nihilistic in that I think he would just crash out, deny it, and get a decent chunk of the country to follow him into 1984 information control. That's another thing, too, is like, there is a difference between having the information and holding the people accountable. You can socially hold the people accountable. Like Asmund said, Donald should just release everything and say, we don't know who did what, so we're not going to prosecute anyone. We're just going to leave it up to public justice. Believe whatever the fuck you want. These are the people that were on his plane. This is how often they were on his plane. This is how long they knew him for. Make up your own minds about it.